He is our guy, Jon Morosi. How are you, man?
Doing great, gentlemen. Usually I'm wearing my workout hoodie, or I just come from the rink. So as you know, we've had on-site coverage for MLB Network all week long. One of our biggest weeks of the year. I love coming to winter meetings.
Well, I was going to ask, just as you said, you're the last man standing essentially there. Now, looking back on everything that had happened during this time, was it more active than you thought it was going to be? Less active? We saw the Pete Alonso news today. Obviously, that was big. I don't know, in terms of just moves being made. I know there's lots of conversations, but actual deals being struck, was this about what you expected, or a little more, a little less?
I would say that we have parred the winter meetings.
Okay.
This is par.
We were kind of talking about Harry Ford and how you have a tendency to kind of fall in love with prospects, right?
Right.
And, definitely that was the case with Harry Ford. I remember a couple of years ago saying, oh, he's untouchable. They can't move him. But that is kind of what happens. And then, just tell us a little bit about what you know about Jose, the bullpen pitcher.
You got it. Yes.
Ferrer.
So let's start with Harry Ford. Your assessment is right in that there was a time, probably a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, where he would have been considered virtually untouchable, and he still was ranking in the top 3 according to MLB Pipeline in the overall prospect rankings. What I'll say is this, and this I'm sure will be spun any number of different ways, and the Nationals may well have a different perception of his defensive ability than another team might. But what this move says is that there are significant doubts, not ruling it out, but significant doubts in the industry about whether or not he can be an everyday catcher in the major leagues, starting 110 games a year and being another team's JT Realmuto. I'm not even going to say Cal Raleigh. He's in a class unto himself, but just a really good defensive catcher. Someone else's Dylan Digler. You saw Dylan during the playoffs. That's the question. Can he be someone's Dylan Dingler? And basically, this trade says that the industry opinion is no, because if he was without a doubt an everyday catcher, you would have done better than a 7th inning reliever for him. Now, again, with all due respect to Ferrer, who's good, Ford, if Harry Ford is a true everyday catcher, you're getting more than a 7th inning reliever for him. And if that's the general industry opinion. Now, this is a good cautionary tale, and again, it might work out fine. Ferrer might be the perfect complement to Gabe Spire at that lane of the game, and the bullpen is an area of the team that the Mariners had to work on. It's all there. I mean, like, it makes logical sense. They probably kept him a year too long. Now, granted, they didn't know that Cal was going to have one of the greatest seasons ever for a catcher, but they're calculating now at this point in time. Cal is signed. There's no real path for Ford to be the everyday catcher for this team in the near term. So, yeah, it made sense to trade him. I would have liked to have seen them arrive at that conclusion a year earlier. You might have had certainly would have had a more valuable trade coming back, but there was value in that year to see more of what he could bring, test him out a little bit in the outfield, DH, different situations. But it seems to me that clearly the expectation of the Mariners and the assessment was he was not going to be their everyday catcher. And obviously they've got Cal sitting there, and that was ostensibly the best value they could find, is a good but not yet great reliever who is importantly under control for a couple more years. And by the way, this type of pitcher, Ferrer, is a type of pitcher the Mariners have done a good job with in the past of getting a high-level performance out of. Again, Gabe Spire is an example of that. Bizzardo is an example of that to some extent. So there's proof of concept there for the Mariners, but in the totality of Harry Ford's time with the Mariners, you would have to say that they have sold at lower than what the peak price is.
Yeah, and I think that was most of the people that didn't like the deal wasn't so much how could you get rid of Harry Ford. It was this is all you got back in exchange for him. And again, we get attached to our own prospects, and they rise higher and higher in our minds, certainly. But I want to talk about who'd
they get back for him, Bob?
I'm not even going to attempt to roll the R's.
Ferrer.
Thank you.
Ferrer.
I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it.
I also fully realize that the screenshots of me saying his name, I look a little goofy. So
Yeah.
we're going to work on that.
We love that.
What do you? I'm reading all kinds of things surrounding this, John. As you might imagine, all the rumors about, well, this team's talking about this guy, this team's talking to this team about, and the Mariners are attached to a few different players. Obviously, Ketel Marte is one. Brendan Donovan is one. I'm seeing somebody sent me something about Bregman today. I don't know if it's real or if that's fake. That they're expressing interest in Bregman. What are you hearing? You're the man who's on the ground there. You're in the middle of all that. What are you hearing that you think is a legitimate rumor? Not that they're going to get the guy, but they're legitimately serious inquiries about as it pertains to the Mariners.
It seems to me that they're looking for one more infielder, but not two. And the idea is that they're trying to keep themselves with some flexibility there. And I've had it suggested to me that at some point in the next year, I don't know when exactly, but if they believe that Emerson is a good enough offensive player, they believe his glove is really close to being there right now, that he could potentially be a shortstop, and maybe that swings J.P. Crawford around to second base. And then eventually they believe in Williamson to a degree that he could play third. So if the right player comes along, if they wait on Polanco and he comes back, maybe that fits. To get Ketel Marte, it's probably going to cost them Hancock plus. And so I'm not sure that they would do that necessarily. So I think that Marte I would describe that as being unlikely in my view. There are other players that I think do make some sense. Brandon Lau is one more name. He has been a popular Mariner target for a long time. The Mariners and Rays, we know they do business together a lot. So Lau, Donovan with St. Louis, I think those types of moves would make a little more sense. Maybe even a Nolan Gorman. I'd be surprised if it was Arenado, but not totally surprised, because the thing about Nolan is I think he wants to be in a winning environment. I think in some ways he'd be a really nice player to add to the Mariners mix, because I think he would be a good mentor for Williamson. The Cardinals are probably going to pay down that salary a lot. And it's just a matter of finding the right place for him. So if they pay down that salary to where the Mariners only have to spend, let's just say $2 million to have Nolan Arenado on your team, I think you do that. I think he's got a good chance to bounce back. I think he'd be a great addition and really giving this young team a real sense of resolve. Obviously, they've got their own resolve losing Game 7 of the LCS, but Nolan has been so close in different playoff situations in the past. Like, he's got a real hunger to win. And I think that having a player like him to supplement, and again, if he's only needed for half a year, hopefully he's there for the full year, but he's a nice bridge, and he gives you a little bit more insurance, because I think it would be asking a lot to lose Gino and Polanco from last year's ALCS roster and then have to have it be a lot of young people there alongside Naylor and JP. So I think one more infielder is coming, but I would not necessarily count on Suarez being that guy. It seems like things have been pretty quiet there, and if Suarez was the real priority for the Mariners, I think he would already be signed and back in the Seattle uniform by now.
Seems like the Red Sox are hot on his heels from what I'm reading.
Yeah, there's interest there, but he's a fallback for Bregman. I don't, from what I was told, and I checked on Eugenio's market with a number of different people here this week. It just seems like it's been slow to develop because there's interest in Bregman, and they're going to wait for Bregman's situation to get settled before really fully moving on other topics. I don't think there's a chance that the Red Sox will sign Eugenio Suarez until Alex Bregman makes his own decision.
Okay, so Shannon, our own Shannon Dreyer wrote an article about Ferrer, and just about how like he has a really high whiff rate on his slider, and Bob and I were talking about it seems like an interesting thing to bring up, because it seems like the bullpen coaches for the Mariners typically bring guys in and then try to say, hey, what's your best pitch, and let's throw more of that. I mean, it's kind of a simple, formula, but it seems to work. And Have the Mariners kind of earned that? I mean, we almost assume that every guy that comes in here and is part of the bullpen is just going to be better than they were before. But do you think that? I mean, is that kind of what you're seeing from the Mariner bullpen?
They have that reputation of being a very good group, and I think certainly coaching is part of it. Let's not forget the guy behind the plate being a big part of that too.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a certain confidence that Cal gives to other people when you consider, especially in that bullpen, reliever after reliever after reliever, having confidence in their stuff, their ability to execute. And to me, in a lot of ways, I think Cal deserves a pretty healthy amount of credit for the performance of the bullpen in the last couple of years, especially in 2025. So I do expect Ferrer to be able to get even better at that pitch execution. And also remembering just the situation he's being put in. The Nationals have not really been a marquee team. And again, this can cut in two different ways. Ferrer is going to go to his first game at T-Mobile, and it's going to be a more electrifying environment than he has seen in a long time in terms of the major league product. And so that will be probably a different experience for him. And the way in which the fans are responding in Seattle right now. And certainly he'll be able to handle that pressure, but it'll be different. And I think that the Mariners, I'm sure, have done their homework on him to realize that he's the kind of player that's going to embrace that environment. Not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants high leverage spots that matter a ton for teams that are about to win. They may all say they want it, but not everybody wants it. And I think that Ferrer, based on what I've been told about his time with the Nationals and his overall character level, I think he should be ready for that, and he'll be an ideal person to put there alongside, again, Spire, Pizarro, Munoz, certainly at the end of the game.
So what are you hearing about Polanco? Because I'm reading that he's looking for a 3 to 4 year deal at somewhere between 14 to 17 million a year, which I don't doubt that he's looking for that. I was thinking he's going to sign a 2-year deal somewhere. So if he gets a 3 or even a 4, I'll be surprised based on age and based on injury history. Do you think he gets that, or where do you think he lands in terms of contract and team wise? Who do you think is the front runner? Because it sounds like the Pirates are in on him. Multiple teams are in on him. I saw the Red Sox as well on him. So where do you think?
This is, to me, a fascinating question in light of the Pittsburgh Pirates, because the Pirates were very public about their effort to sign Kyle Schwarber. Didn't work out, obviously. They seem to be very interested in spending money and becoming relevant again on the position player side. We know, of course, their pitching is great, led by Skeens, but they need a bat. And Jorge Polanco, for me, is, if the Pirates are going to try to make a statement by signing someone to a 3-year contract and going above and beyond what the rest of the industry is doing, Jorge Polanco is the ideal candidate. Because I like you, believe that his market should be somewhere in the 2-year range based on age, injury history. My assessment is exactly the same as yours. And so
that's why I love you, Jon.
Yeah, well, hey, we're family here. We're family. But even in addition to that, if the Pirates, if they're just going to be within range of everybody else's offers like they were on Schwarber, they're never going to get anybody. Okay, they're going to have to overpay. I've seen this. I saw this with the Tigers when they first started to get good around 20 years ago. They had to overpay to get Maglio Ordonez and Pudge Rodriguez. They had to overpay to bring in talent. You have to take some chances to get yourself back on the map. The Pirates have to do that. And that might be Munetaka Murakami. That might be Kazuma Okamoto. That might be Jorge Polanco. They might even be an Eugenio Suarez. These are the types of players that they're going to make a statement. They might go 1 year longer than everybody else. They might go $1 million more on the AAV than everybody else. And they probably have to, because right now people are not lining up to play in Pittsburgh. They may in the future, but they're not right now. Someone has to be the first person there to sign the above market deal to establish the legitimacy and relevance of this group again. And that is now going to be, I think, potentially someone like a Jorge Polanco. The other thing about Polanco is, if you look at him as a second baseman / DH, there are other players. I've mentioned Donovan. I mentioned Lau. We've talked about Marte. Jake Cronenworth is one more name. Nolan Gorman. There's a lot of different players that fit that general description that are available now in trade that you're not going to have to spend all that money in cash to bring in. So I think other teams are probably working through what they could get on the trade market for some of these less expensive players in salary than what Polanco will be, before then having to stretch and say, okay, 3 years for Polanco, how comfortable am I at that level? I think that's more of a later December, maybe even early January decision.
Jon, we love you, man. We appreciate it. Stay safe. Have fun out there, and we'll talk to you next week live from Duluth, Minnesota.
I cannot wait. It'll be probably the first segment ever in the history of Wyman and Bob live from Duluth. I'm guessing. I think it's probably true.
And they probably don't have a Waldorf Astoria there. Maybe
there's no Waldorf Astoria, but I've been told a good pizza place. So I've been given all the recommendations. They specialize there in exactly the type of food you'd expect when it's about 10 below, and that's what I expect it's going to be.
Hot food. Yeah.
There you go.
Jon, we appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Looking forward to it, guys. All the best.
Thanks,
Thank you.
There he is,
Thank
the great Jon Morosi, with us each and every week. Always a